You know you're from Palo Alto when you used to buy your chocolate chip cookies directly from Mrs. Fields herself. I didn't know that Mrs. Fields came from here and that she had like a store and gave out cookies. So Palo Alto, wow, cool. Hi, I'm Gwyneth Price Panos, your realtor and friend here in the Silicon Valley. I'm on a Facebook group called Our Town of Palo Alto, and it's for people who grew up in Palo Alto. I posted, you know you're from Palo Alto when? Please finish the sentence. As of the other day, I had almost 700 comments. So obviously I'm not gonna read all of them. And to be honest, a lot of them were people who grew up in Palo Alto in the 50s, 60s. I had no clue what they were talking about half the time. I mean, it was really cool, and I definitely want to make a video about the history of Palo Alto. I mean, I wanted to anyway. But for today, I'm going to talk to you about things that are more relatable to my generation. So this video will hopefully make you laugh, make you smile, make you have fond memories, and be educational for those of you who don't know that much about Palo Alto. Let's jump into it. You know you're from Palo Alto when after more than 50 years living elsewhere, you still root for Stanford. What's cool about Palo Alto is we are technically a college town, and so if you want to be in a place with that college town vibe, you can, right here. Oh, this one was cute. Your father got you up at 0:30 to watch a satellite launch because he designed part of it. I love that. We have NASA, we have Moffett Field, which is NASA. You know you're from Palo Alto when you know what Hoover's last erection is, and you may have been born near it. This is Hoover Tower. That's the erection that we're talking about, and it's near Stanford Hospital. And yes, I was born at Stanford Hospital. You know you're from Palo Alto when you're not impressed by people who went to Stanford. Stanford's up there with like Harvard and Yale and stuff, and to me it's just, you know, it's Stanford. It's the college down the street. Big deal. It's like saying you're an engineer when you live here. Everyone's an engineer. Depending on where in Palo Alto you lived and what decade it was, you could say, I grew up a block away from Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, or Steve Young. From where I am right now, Mark Zuckerberg is just down the street that way. And there's always cars out in front, so if you like slow down to be like, hey look, that's Mark Zuckerberg's house, they'll like flash their lights at you and be like, move along. Move along. You know you're from Palo Alto when it's more important to you that you get into a good college than it is that you make the varsity football team. Yes. Nobody cares about football, except the Stanford games. But like in high school, I went to a football game once, and that was for homecoming, and I left early. You met Mrs. Gamble of Procter & Gamble when selling Little League candy bars. How cool is that? When you're pissed at James Franco for giving the world a totally inaccurate impression of your wholesome hometown. Wow, I have not seen the movie Palo Alto, so now I definitely want to. Your house is worth $2 million and you're considered middle class. Yeah, along the same vein, your mom rented an Eichler that is now worth $2 million. You know you're from Palo Alto when you worship Eichlers. So for those of you who don't know what an Eichler is, it's a certain style of house. They kind of paved the way for the mid-century modern style. Like if you buy a house that's considered mid-century modern in another state, it is probably inspired by an Eichler. You know you're from Palo Alto when your teacher development day just happened to coincide with a Jewish or Chinese holiday. Because there's so many people in Palo Alto who are Chinese and might have holidays where they would take their kids out of school, or Jewish and they have holidays where they would also take their kids out of school for those reasons, the school district will purposely schedule teacher development days for holidays where they know a bunch of students will be absent anyway. In Palo Alto specifically, we have a lot of synagogues. On Saturdays, you'll see a lot of people walking to temple, all dressed up really nice. You know you're from Palo Alto when you didn't know you were smart until you went to college. So this was one that could be considered really positive and really negative at the same time, because Palo Alto is so well known for its school district, and we have a lot of Tiger and helicopter moms, as well as just people who, because they're here for tech or for Stanford or for NASA or whatever, education's important to them, and so they put a lot of pressure on their children to be good in school. And so when you're going to school with a lot of really ambitious other students who might have been taking summer classes, so they already know all the math that they're going to be learning in school and you haven't learned it yet, or they already know how to read at a second grade level when they're in kindergarten, you might feel like you're stupid because you're not as advanced as these other students. And then when you go to college and you're with normal people from all across the country, I've heard several people say that they didn't realize they were smart until they were in college. And this even happened to my sister. She became a veterinarian. During undergrad, she had a teacher or a counselor say, you need to take these honors classes. And she's like, I'm not an honors student. And she's like, yeah, you are. You know you're from Palo Alto when you know that East Meadow is always East Meadow, but East Charleston is only Charleston. Yeah, we always just call it Charleston. Never called it East Charleston. Don't know why, that's random. You have no sense of geographic direction since you spent your whole life driving north into the setting sun or south into the rising sun. Okay, we're gonna go over to a map. My husband's from out of state and he was so confused why we kept calling things east and west, which were actually not at all. It's because I'm gonna pretend to be a weather girl here. San Francisco is north, San Jose is south. If you're facing San Francisco, anything to the right of the freeway would therefore be east, and everything to the left of the freeway would therefore be west. The same with El Camino or Middlefield. So East Palo Alto. It's actually north of Palo Alto, but we call it east. Anytime I give someone directions, I'm like, yeah, you're going south on El Camino. And my husband would be like, no, you're not. It's not actually going south. But in my head, it's going south, and it's not actually true. You thought you knew where all of Greg Brown's murals were, but then you kept finding another one. So Greg Brown is a muralist, obviously, and there's a lot of paintings on the sides of buildings in Palo Alto and Mountain View and probably Menlo Park as well that he did. And I should do a video about him because that would be cool. You know you're from Palo Alto when you know who Mickey was, the original donkey at Bull Park. Okay, so there's this park called Bull Park and they have donkeys. This here is Mickey. This is also the home of the donkey that was used as the design inspiration for the donkey in Shrek. Artists from DreamWorks came to Palo Alto and sketched our donkey. And I think there's 2 currently right now. And it's free. It's like a zoo that you don't have to pay for, and I think you can even pet them sometimes through the fence. Actually, I didn't know about the donkeys until high school. It's kind of embarrassing. I blame my mother. She never took me to the donkeys. How horrible. You tell people you're from Palo Alto, but immediately you have to qualify it by saying, but before computers and Silicon Valley took over. Well, I can't say that because the Silicon Valley is the reason my parents came to Palo Alto. My mom had a job with HP and my dad was probably working at a startup or something. They came to Palo Alto because of tech. So I'm here because of tech. Otherwise, I would not have been hatched and they would never have met. People call you a snob because you say you're from Palo Alto. Or you think you're slightly superior to anyone who moved here in the past 20 years. So I think those are somewhat related because in the last 20 years, the housing market has gone out of control, insane. Palo Alto's always had more expensive homes than around it, but like it's just gotten so expensive that anyone who can afford to live there now, like people who can buy homes in Palo Alto now are spending, $4, $5, $6 million. And the people who currently live here would not have been able to buy into Palo Alto now. So just because you have a house in Palo Alto does not mean you're hoity-toity rich stuff. A little old lady down the street from my parents' house bought her house for $30,000, to give you an example. And then my parents got theirs for around $600,000, and now their house is probably worth the high, just to give you an idea. And yes, some of that's inflation, but a lot of it's just the market and the fact that Palo Alto's famous. There's a lot of international investors interested because they have heard of Palo Alto where they might not have heard of, Atherton, which technically is a more expensive, hoitier place to live, in my opinion. So, yeah. At least when I was growing up. I saw a ton of references to the Beatles because apparently they came to Palo Alto for a concert. You remember when the Beatles stayed at the Cabana Hotel on El Camino in the 60s and you walked there from your house on Charleston Road to try and catch a glimpse of them. When you saw the Beatles drive down our street to get to the back entrance of the Cabana Hotel, 1966 I think, standing 4 feet away from their limo waving. You know you're from Palo Alto when you tell someone you're from there and a smile comes to your face and you can't wait to tell stories. I just thought that was really cute. People just talked a lot about places they like to go and memories they have and things they like to do, which I think should be in a different video altogether because, well, this is getting incredibly long, but also because what fun things to do in Palo Alto is a video in and of itself. I am Gwyneth of Silicon Valley, your realtor and friend. Subscribe. Oh, and here's my Instagram and Facebook. Or there. Follow me. Subscribe, like, comment. You know you want to. Okay. Bye.